Hello, and welcome. If you're familiar with the channel, welcome back. If you're not familiar with the channel and you're just here for the baubles, then welcome and thank you for dropping by. I am today going to be knocking out some post-apocalyptic Fallout style baubles using techniques that are probably more familiar to people who make scale models, historical models, or paint wargames figures, that sort of thing. But I'm using these techniques to try and produce these distressed, rusty looking Christmas baubles. Your starting point is just a cheap old plastic bauble, nothing fancy, preferably a plain, unpatterned one, and ideally a matte finish, but essentially just a plain plastic bauble. For ease of use, I'm sticking a kebab stick in the hole at the end. I wrapped a little bit of gaffer tape around the end of the kebab stick because it was a little bit too narrow for the hole. And here's a couple of others that I've prepared earlier. The first stage is going to be get these babies painted brown. I've used spray primers because primers will help any subsequent paint that I use take to the surface. I've used Plasticoat metal primer, which I got from the range. It's a car undercoat. And I've also used a brand Army Painter, which is a miniature painting model maker type brand that you can get in game shops and model shops. But any brown primer type paint will do. I'm sure Rust-Oleum would work as well. So here we have the baubles ready to go. So for the next stage, I'm going to be using a washing up sponge that I'm going to be tearing into chunks, and also a cheap bog standard acrylic craft paint in dark brown. This one's raw umber, but any dark brown's going to do. And I'm now just going to sponge random blotches of the dark paint over the primer. So what I'm hoping to get is a random distribution of two different browns. I'm not worried about it being neat and tidy. In fact, the more random it is, the better. Ideally, you'll end up with something looking a bit like this. It's the same technique for the bauble that's got the ridges in it. Just you'll need to press a little bit harder with the sponge just to get the paint into the recesses. But once again, same technique. You're looking for pretty much the same result. Once your browns are dry, you want to repeat that process, but using a bright orange acrylic paint. And one thing I should mention that I didn't mention earlier, these browns and oranges you're using, you want to make sure that they're matte. Matte finish paint is what you want to be using here. You are looking for an end result that looks a bit like this, random and blotchy. Using a sponge and using acrylic paints, which are fairly thick, you get a textured result when the paint is dry, kind of a rough textured pattern in the paint. This is good because it's all part of the rusty, distressed type feel that we're going for. The next stage I've done off camera, mainly because there wasn't really much to see, to be honest. I've just sprayed all these three baubles with hairspray. I don't think it matters what hairspray you use. This was hairspray I had kicking around the house. In fact, I stole it from my wife, so don't tell her. But just a generous layer all over the bauble. The hairspray dries shiny, so once it's dry, you can always check to see if you've got a decent coverage or not. The next step is going to be spray the baubles with an acrylic spray paint in the colour of your choice. I'll be doing this off camera as well because you don't really need to watch me spraying baubles. Once again, I shall be using Army Painter spray. Any acrylic spray paint's going to work. I'm only using this because I had it. Just make sure when you do spray the baubles, you don't hold the spray can too close because you don't want too much paint hitting the bauble and running around all over the place. You don't want drips. In fact, two thin coats, one after the other, is probably better than trying to get it all in one big thick coat. And as if by magic, a green and an ivory coloured bauble appear. I'm now grabbing a bowl of warm water, and to go with that bowl of warm water, I'm getting a toothbrush, an old makeup brush, and a pot scourer. Now this is when the magic starts. You dunk your bauble into the warm water, just give it a little bit of a soak, just to get the paint wet really. And then to start with, I'm coming in with the makeup brush. With the brush, you start rubbing away on the surface of the paint, just rubbing backwards and forwards. And what you're trying to do is abrade the surface of the paint so that the water can then get underneath and start to dissolve the hairspray. Plenty of water, and rub fairly gently because you don't want to disturb the primer base layer. Just keep rubbing backwards and forwards, and eventually, like you see here, you'll see that the paint just starts to flake away, as if there's rust under the paint, causing the paint to bubble and blister. And now you just keep going until you've got the effect that you want. Whenever you start on a new area, you'll know when the water is starting to get into the hairspray, because you'll see the surface of the water on the bauble starts to get sort of frothy and bubbly. That's the hairspray mixing the water, so you know you got in there then. So there you are. Look, so far so good. I'll come back and finish this off later, but I'm going to have a go with the green one now. As before, just give it a brief soak in the hot water. And on this occasion, I'm going to start off with the toothbrush. Let's see what kind of difference that makes. Yeah, that seems to be working quite quickly, actually. Yep, nice effect. Look at that. I like that. It is a bit more abrasive, so you probably have to be a little bit more careful how you're using this than makeup brush. And speaking of abrasive, I'll have a go with the scouring pad now. Yeah, that's working quite quickly, actually. I think you'd need to be very, very gentle with this. Use plenty of water, because otherwise you're going to risk scratching into the primer, which you don't want to do. But other than that, yeah, it's working okay. I think I'll spend a happy few minutes now just playing around with water and brushes. Now, what if you wanted to do this but didn't want to use or don't have spray paints? Could you use just standard acrylics? Let's find out. I'm going to sponge this stuff on because I suspect that using a brush will disturb the hairspray too much. I'm just going to do this in one pass. I'm trying not to disturb the paint once it's on there, because I don't want to mess up the hairspray layer. There you go, all done. It's a bit patchy, but that's not a problem because the end effect we're going for, that won't matter. It's a bit thick though. I hope that doesn't cause a problem. As you can see, I've already had a bit of a go at this now, and yeah, it works quite well. What I would say though is you do need to work at it a bit harder to get it to start. I guess that's because the paint's a bit thicker, but other than that, yeah, seems to work fine. Okay, so the finishing touches now are going to be the hangers that I pulled off the top of the baubles. They're a bit bright and shiny for a post-apocalyptic look, so let's just dull them down. I've got here a mix of the brown and the orange that I've used, just to sort of a rusty orangey browny colour. And I'm just gonna paint it on. Oops. Just gonna paint it on over the gold colour. Now, I haven't put primer on. The coverage is not going to be perfect, but it doesn't really matter if there's some sort of metallic shine showing through, because it's just supposed to make them look like they were originally metallic but corroded. So I'll just add to the overall effect. There you go. That'll do. I've just got to do the rest of them. So here we have the finished articles. These are the two spray painted ones, and I think they look all right, don't they? They look nice and distressed and rusty and post-apocalyptic, I think. And here we have the one that wasn't spray painted, and again, it's worked. So I think the takeaway is that you don't actually need the spray paint for the top cover. I would still be using the spray paint as a primer, but here we are. Our final finished post-apocalyptic baubles. Coming up next is going to be a few glamour shots showing these in situ, but essentially that's how I did what I did. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. And if you have liked it, then pop us a like or something, or give us a comment down below. But that's it. That's the end of this video. Thank you very much. Bye for now, and hopefully see you all again soon.